Now that we've touched on some practical examples, moving on, we're going to do a deep dive on what makes a good experiment. During these next couple of days to weeks, you are going to work on designing your own experiment before coming to your first in-person lab. So it is very important that you pay close attention to the material coming up in this unit. Sound good? We want to make sure that you are set up for success. So with that, let's get started. So diving into what makes a good experiment. First things first, a good experiment should provide data to support or refute hypotheses. Just as another reminder, we never prove anything in science. We can disprove things, but we work to provide support for theories and hypotheses. That is the purpose of an experiment. So remembering the purpose is the first step in designing a good experiment. When designing your experiment, it is ideal to only test one variable. If you test more than one variable at a time, you might get results that can't conclusively say whether your experiment actually elicited the results that you are interpreting. So looking at one thing at a time is very important. Another thing that we all have to be cautious of, as we're all human, is working hard to remain unbiased. This means that we need to make sure that we do not let our opinion influence our experiment. It's also very important that we repeat our experiment, so that way we can ensure that our results are not just what we call a one-off, right? We have to make sure that our experimental results, I should say, did not occur just by random chance, but because of what we are testing. So repeatability is very important. And it's also very important that we work to remove confounding variables or external factors that may influence our experiment, right? Such as the environment, the time of day, the equipment being used. It's very important that we standardize certain things in our experiment. So another way to say this is consider and eliminate all confounding variables. The term confounding variables just refers to variables that can influence your experiment that you don't want to influence your experiment, or that maybe you didn't think of. Sound good? And then speaking of variables, a good experiment should always have very clearly defined independent, dependent, and standardized variables. And then we also need to define our groups. There should be a clearly defined treatment group in our experiment, as well as control groups, with an adequate, meaning large, sample size. Remember, sample sizes are very important. That kind of ties back a little bit to repeatability, making sure that our data is trustworthy. And then speaking of data and results. It's important that these are analyzed appropriately using statistical analyses. Otherwise, how can we trust the results that we got? Without proper analysis, there's no way to say whether or not our results mean something, or if we are just getting those results due to random chance. Okay, so this is our list of things that you should keep in mind when you are developing your experiment. We're going to break down some of these now together to make sure that you understand what is needed and that you are set up for success, okay?